Hello?
Are you ready to be reborn?
Who is this?
Dharma Initiate presents Cinema Bizaar. Hello, namaskar, welcome to Cinema Bizaar. This is the first installment of my video series I'm calling Cinema Bizaar. This is going to be film review, analysis, diving into conspiracy theories, esoteric symbolism, spiritual themes, subliminal messaging, predictive programming, and what we call soft disclosure, which is the theory that the elites actually use popular media to reveal what they're doing to the masses, but at the same time hide it behind a veneer of fiction. The very first film I've chosen for this series is a little-known movie from 2013 called The Congress. The premise of this movie is that actors are no longer needed to physically act in film productions. Rather, images of their face and body are scanned and stored digitally, and movies are made entirely on computers using the likeness of the actors. The Congress revolves around the actress Robin Wright and her decision either to be digitally scanned or not to be digitally scanned, and the consequences that ensue. This is a rather dystopian portrayal of the future. I would describe it as a mashup between The Matrix, Brave New World, and Being John Malkovich. I know that sounds funny, but it works. It covers some timely topics such as AI, automation, and the implosion of the film industry. It's part drama, part sci-fi. It's very meta. It's also a mix of live action and animation. I like the way it handles the material. It's very nuanced. There's a lot of ideas packed into this 2-hour movie, so there's a lot to talk about. To score this movie, I would give it an 8 out of 10. The acting is great, the animation is beautiful, it's very creative, but it can be a little gratuitous and unfocused in some parts. It is not appropriate for children. There is a little bit of sexuality, swearing. Overall, there's some very disturbing concepts in here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the analysis. Major spoilers ahead. The Congress opens with Robin Wright playing a fictionalized version of herself having a conversation with her agent. Her agent is telling her that she's made too many bad choices in the past and effectively ruined her own career because she chose to do all the wrong movies and turn down all the right ones. Her agent informs her that she has one last offer on the table, and she agrees to go with him to the studio headquarters to see what this offer is all about. Now we get to meet the sleazy Hollywood producer, Jeff Green, the owner of Miramount Studios. Miramount, of course, is a mashup of Miramax and Paramount. Interestingly enough, Miramax was actually founded by the infamous Weinstein brothers and is now partially owned by Paramount. In this scene, Miramount Studios is offering Robin Wright the last contract they will ever offer her. A legally binding agreement to be digitally scanned by Miramount Studios, after which her image will become the property of the studio that they can use however they please. If she chooses to do this, she is guaranteed a stable income, but she has no choice over what movies they will put her image in or what roles they will use her image to portray. In addition to this, she will be legally barred from ever acting in anything, ever again. If she declines the contract, she's on her own. She will never be able to work with Miramount again, and it's highly unlikely that she will ever find work at all, because 1, she's a middle-aged woman, and 2, all the other actors and actresses are being scanned anyway. Scanning is the way of the future, and traditional acting is going extinct.
We at Miramount want to scan you. We want to own this thing called Robin Wright.
Jeff Green tells her that once she signs the contract, Miramount will not only own her image, they will also own her identity as well. Robin immediately recognizes how dehumanizing this idea is, refuses to sign the contract, and walks out of the meeting. Later that day, her agent comes over to her house to talk to her about the benefits of scanning and to try to convince her to sign the contract. Robin is opposed to this technology because it takes choice away from the actor.
It is the gift of choice that is being taken away. I don't want somebody else deciding when I can be what I want to be. I want to decide. That's my choice.
The proponents of this technology resort to the usual arguments. It'll make life easier and more convenient.
Do you think it'd be any better for her or for you if she was stuck on the set for 6 weeks, like a dog?
It's the way of the future, and it would be backwards to go against it.
Don't be so harsh. Technophobia never got human nature anywhere.
Her agent tells her that actors are just puppets anyway, so what difference does it make if she signs away her image and identity? When Robin voices her opposition to it once more, her agent just resorts to yelling at her and berating her for being stupid.
You're nuts if you don't take that deal. I swear to you, you're a basket case, and everything they say about you is true.
In the next scene, we find out that her son, Aaron, has been diagnosed with a degenerative disease that will eventually render him deaf and blind. Now, this is what affects her decision more than anything. If she doesn't sign this contract, she will probably struggle to make ends meet, and she won't be able to give him the care that he needs. Now we get to see how the scanning works. This scene is interesting because there's nothing violent or sexual going on, and yet it's very unsettling and disturbing. First of all, the man doing the scanning used to be a cinematographer, which is also called the director of photography. It's a very artistic profession. The cinematographer is in charge of the lighting on a film set, so they're actually responsible for creating the mood and atmosphere of a film, just by manipulating the lights and the lens of the cameras and using all sorts of techniques that photographers use for the art of photography. Now that the cinematographers have been eliminated by Miramount, he's been downgraded to this job of scanning, where he just sits there and pushes a button, and he has no artistic input at all. But like he says, he's actually lucky because everyone else is just sitting at home doing nothing, meaning they've all been laid off and they have no job at all. So here's how the process works. She goes into this dome structure that's covered in cameras, and the cameras take pictures of her from every possible angle. What she needs to do is to run the gamut of emotions. They want to see her laugh, they want to see her cry, they want to see her blank expression. And there's this moment where the scanner tells her to transition to emptiness. And she becomes very uncomfortable and she wants to quit. So in order to keep the process going, her agent starts telling her a story. So her agent starts telling her the story of how he got into this line of work. He says that he has a knack for identifying flaws and weaknesses in people and monetizing them. And we start to learn that when he was a kid, that he actually found a way to make money off of kids being ridiculed and exploited them while pretending to help them.
When I was 15, Child Protection got on my case for abusing handicapped kids.
And this story is told in a very humorous way, but it's easy to see through it and just see the truth, which is that this guy is just another parasite. He's leeching off of people. He's leeching off of people who are naive. He's leeching off of people who are vulnerable. And then he goes on to explain that he's latched on to Robin because he loves her, but he admits that he's just been exploiting her weaknesses as well. It's so unsettling because we're essentially watching her raw emotions being harvested to make some type of commercial product for other people to consume. We flash forward 20 years in the future, and Robin Wright is on her way to attend an event called the Futurist Congress, being hosted by Miramount. Now, this is when the movie kicks into high gear and it becomes very psychedelic. We learn that she's going to enter something called a restricted animated zone, and before she enters the premises, she has to snort some type of drug up her nose.
I see you're expected at the Miramount Abraham Hotel as a distinguished guest of the Futurist Congress. You are empty.
There's some interesting details in this scene. The first one is the Miramount logo prominently shown on the security guard's hat. On the surface level, it's supposed to be a star above a mountain, but here you can see it's clearly representing an eye. Very reminiscent of the all-seeing eye. And this is deliberate because it's even reflected in the name Miramount. Mira or mira being Spanish for look, and mount being mountain. So you have the possible meaning of the view from the mountain, being at the top of the pyramid or some large structure, being above everything else and looking down and controlling it from afar. It could also be mira as in mirage, which means an illusion. And that's going to come into play too, so I think this is all very deliberate. He says, the only way to leave is to see me again. And that's going to pop up later in the film. Now we get to see what this drug actually does. It turns your self-image into a cartoon version of yourself, and it immerses you into this fantastical toon world. Of course, it's not physically changing you or changing reality, it's just altering your perception of reality. But it's so detailed and so vivid, you could see how it could fool someone into thinking it's real, or simply choosing to live in this state 24/7. She parks her car on a cliff, and we see a Miramount blimp passing by to showcase movie previews. It's previewing a movie that Robin's image was used in. It's some ridiculous sci-fi schlock called Rebel Robot Robin.
Rebel Robot Robin, Street Fighter.
Robin watches it and makes an expression of shame. This is important because earlier when she was negotiating the contract, one of her stipulations was to never do sci-fi. But in the end, she ends up compromising so she can secure the deal and get the money. It turns out that this character, Rebel Robot Robin,
Rebel Robot Robin, Street Fighter,
became her most popular character, and now she has to deal with seeing it everywhere she goes. As she enters the hotel, she's greeted by robot butlers and a robot receptionist. And she's not shocked or surprised by this at all, so we can assume that this is commonplace at this point, that low-skill, low-wage workers have all been replaced because of automation. She goes up to her hotel room to relax, but unfortunately she is treated to an old interview of hers where she tries to say that R,
Rebel Robot Robin, Street Fighter,
has some kind of pertinent social commentary about the treatment of household robots.
The robots that come from the gutters, they're so much a part of our lives. It's documentary.
You can tell it's humiliating for Robin, but for me it just makes me laugh out loud every time I watch it, because it reminds me of how these vapid celebrities always try to make themselves and their projects seem way more important than they actually are. Like they really think this stuff is high art when it's absolute trash.
We'd like to thank Netflix, Sean, Matt, Ross, and the amazing casting director, Carmen Cuba. And I would just like to say that in light of all that's going on in the world today, it's difficult to celebrate the already celebrated Stranger Things. But this award from you, who take your craft seriously and earnestly believe, like me, that great acting can change the world, is a call to arms from our fellow craftsmen and women to go deeper, and through our art to battle against fear, self-centeredness, and exclusivity of our predominantly narcissistic culture, and through our craft to cultivate a more empathetic and understanding society by revealing intimate truths that serve as a forceful reminder.
But to me, the point is clear. This is very much a warning about compromising on your beliefs, because you'll have to live with the consequences. Even though she hates the movie, she hates Miramount, she hates Jeff Green, she signed the contract and she's been essentially turned into their mouthpiece. This scene is important because this is where things get even crazier, and we start to see the motif of the slippery slope. Things are accelerating and they're accelerating downhill. So first of all, Robin gets called into Jeff's office, and when she gets there, she sees Tom Cruise, of all people, and they have a little chat. Robin is curious as to where all the other actors are. Tom tells her that they're the only ones left and goes on to explain that Miramount has replaced almost all the other actors with characters that they created. So these are characters that they made out of thin air with their software. Robin walks into the office, sits down with Jeff, and he starts trying to convince her to extend and update the contract. This scene is very much mirroring the first contract scene, only this proposition is much more absurd. Even crazier than being turned into an image in a computer, now the actual essence of a person can be distilled down into a chemical formula, be bought, sold, and consumed. Literally consumed like a McDonald's milkshake.
You see, Robin, from now on, you're a substance. That's all. You're a chemical formula that Miramount Nagasaki's brilliant pharmaceutical department has cracked.
Also notice that he says Miramount Nagasaki. That's a little nod to globalization, letting us know that Miramount is now a global corporation. So it's just getting bigger and bigger and more powerful. I deeply appreciate this diatribe because I believe that it exposes the problem with having to defend everything using pure logic and rationality. Because if you're forced to rely on pure logic and rationality, then you simply don't have any arguments as to why this technology is wrong. You can say it's gross, it's amoral, it doesn't feel right, it's turning people into products, and that's wrong. But this is already an amoralistic society. So unless you have a scientific rationale for your opinion, then your opinion doesn't matter. So now we get to see what the Futurist Congress actually looks like. The crowd is in a frenzy, and a man in a black cloak is on stage, congratulating the crowd and praising the Miramount scientists for launching what they call the chemical revolution, which he describes as a neo-god creation. This chemical revolution is going to transform society, yet again, as this new drug is being hailed as the solution to all of life's problems. Robin then walks onto the stage and expresses her opposition to this technology, saying that the money and energy would be better spent on curing diseases, such as the one her son has. She is also morally opposed to it, again, because of the dehumanizing implications. The crowd is incensed by this notion, and she is quickly booed and dragged off stage. The man in black, who turns out to be the president of Miramount, swoops in for some damage control, but he is promptly shot by a sniper. The crowd descends into chaos. Abrahama is invaded by a group of revolutionaries, and just then, a mysterious man in white comes to Robin's rescue. To some viewers, this guy seems to have come out of nowhere, but if you were paying close attention, you will have seen him in the background at multiple points. The man in white takes Robin down to the basement of the ship to get away from the war zone. Now that they're out of danger, he finally explains who he is. His name is Dylan Trueliner. He used to be a computer animator who worked exclusively with Robin's image, and in the process, he became obsessed with her. He worked as an animator for many years, until today when the chemical revolution was launched. He was laid off, as they all were, now that computer animators are no longer necessary. A man riding a giant cockroach bursts in with some good news. The most intriguing part of this, besides the giant cockroach, is that he says, "We're going to be real again," implying that all the employees were being forced to stay inside the animated zone, so they were all basically slaves. The following section is a little confusing, so I'm just going to scrub through it. Essentially, there's several hallucinations or dreams, or a combination of the two. I don't believe it's crucial to the plot, except it does raise the possibility that the whole film itself is a dream, and I have considered that before.
How do I know if I'm dreaming?
Okay, so here we go, guys. We are transitioning to the future, again, as we find out that Robin has actually been in a coma for some number of years because of the hallucinogenic contamination.
She suffered severe hallucinogenic contamination.
And the world that she's waking up in now is even wackier than the one before. What you'll notice, first of all, is that everything is still in tune form. So this world and everyone in it must still be under the influence of drugs. She wakes up in what looks like a hotel room, and Dylan comes to see her. He tells her that he's been waiting for her this whole time, but Robin's first concern is the whereabouts of her son, Aaron. Dylan explains that they can search for him using his DNA profile, which they call an original DNA listing. So we can infer that in this society, the DNA profile of every individual is copied, uploaded, and put on some public database that anyone can access. However, in spite of that, there is still no trace of Aaron. They have no idea where he is. So Dylan promises to help her find her son, and he takes her out into this brave new world that is the future. All right, there is a treasure trove of information packed into that 2-minute clip, so let me break that down for you. First of all, here they are, they're walking through this psychedelic wonderland, and you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, is this real or is this just more of the drugs they're on? How are they supposed to know what's real and what's not real? Robin remarks on the fact that no one can tell her how long she's been in a coma because time is now subjective. Yes, time, the most objective thing in the world, is now completely up for grabs. You can define it, redefine it however you like. So I guess no one cares anymore what's real and what's not real. Thanks to chemistry, we've been redeemed. Again, that's another sign that science has replaced religion. In a different age, he would have said, thanks to Christ, we've been redeemed, or in the Eastern context, he would have said something like, thanks to our spiritual discipline, we've been redeemed. But no, it's thanks to chemistry. Thanks to those brilliant Miramount scientists we were all supposed to be rebelling against. Like I pointed out before, everything is still animated, so that means that the movement to overthrow Miramount, stop the chemistry flow, and to come back to reality has failed. Not only has it failed, it seems that the movement has been completely subverted. Now that everyone can be placated with their own version of reality, they see no need to challenge it. Everyone is what they are. Everyone is what they want to be. Well, I'm sorry, but who you are and who you want to be are not the same thing. One is reality and one is fantasy. And if you can't distinguish fantasy from reality, that's called being delusional. You just make a choice and you feel whatever you want. At any moment, you can do anything you want to do, feel anything you want to feel, and be anything you want to be. It's pure instant gratification with no limits. You can be a celebrity, you can be a god, you can even be a character from your own imagination. There's no war, no conflict, no struggle, and no competition. It all sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? But another way of viewing this society is that they've created a world that is utterly meaningless. There's no meaning to anything except for sensory gratification. Everything that used to be meaningful has been reduced to a product. Every concept, every experience, every emotion, even every individual person has been distilled down to a chemical formula that can be copied, produced, reproduced, and consumed by anyone at any time. This is a society where nothing is sacred because everything is just a commodity, including religion. We see plenty of religious figures in the background, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just the image they want to project. Dylan and Robin are having a fancy lobster dinner in a rather opulent-looking building, and they start to discuss life in the real world, without all the chemicals. The way that he describes it, it's like death. He says it's on the other side, and you have to cross over. He's thinking and talking like a drug addict. Dylan shows her the capsule that will take her to the other side, but he begs her not to take it. Robin, however, is convinced that Aaron is on the other side, and is determined to find him, no matter what. She takes the capsule and walks away from Dylan. Remember the security guard from the first half of the movie? There he is.
The only way to leave the animation zone is when we meet again. On your way out.
Now we finally get to see the truth of what these people are living in. The infrastructure is crumbling, there's no sanitation, everyone is just milling around completely out of their minds, they're all dirty and dressed in rags. This woman is just sitting there slumped on the ground, totally strung out. You might notice that she was wearing a hazmat suit and gas mask, but she took them off. In the midst of the crowd, you can see certain individuals standing around in hazmat suits. This isn't explicitly explained in the script, but I think that these are Miramount employees that are meant to watch over the masses and make sure no one gets out of line. They're supposed to wear the suit and mask to stay sober, but it looks like this lady has just given up and joined the chemical party. Robin walks up to her and asks her where she can find a doctor. Robin says, "Are there any doctors left in this world?" She doesn't say city or country, which opens up the possibility that Miramount and the chemical revolution have taken over the whole world. She discovers that doctors and other persons still working for Miramount are living above the city in blimps. They all appear to be in good health, are dressed in nice uniforms, and they spend their time lounging and watching the world below through telescopes. Remember what I told you about the Miramount symbolism? It came true, didn't it? Robin finds the man that she was looking for. It's the doctor that diagnosed Aaron from the beginning of the film. The doctor doesn't have any good news. He says that he's just waiting for death up there, and he's completely hopeless about the future. The doctor informs her that it's been exactly 19 years since the Futurist Congress. That was the last time that she had contact with her son. He had been waiting for her to come back to reality for 19 years, but tragically, he had recently given up and joined the chemical party. Erin is now somewhere in the chemical world, and there is no guarantee that she will find him. Knowing that this is her last chance to be with her son again, she takes the drug and attempts to locate him by living through his memories and seeing the world through his eyes. In the final frame of the film, she calls his name, and he turns around and smiles. Okay, guys, that was a wild ride. Thank you so much for sitting through this hour-long review. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my first review and analysis, so I would greatly appreciate your feedback. What did you think of the movie? What did you think of the issues that it raises? What do you think of this portrayal of the future? Do you think that this is where we're headed? If you follow me on Telegram, you'll know this is very different from my usual content. I'm not changing the direction of my channel, I'm just branching out a little bit. If you're new to my content, I usually cover spiritual topics, namely Hinduism as of right now. That's the main focus of my Telegram channel. So it's up to you which type of content you'd like to follow. For spiritual topics, subscribe to my Telegram. If you're only interested in the film reviews, then just subscribe to my Odyssey or my Rumble. All my links are listed below, so please check them out. Thank you.